Good morning, dear students. So welcome back to International Human Resource Management class, and today we'll be discussing cross-cultural training in continuation to what we had discussed earlier in our previous class, and a bit about performance management. So we have already discussed what cross-cultural training is, what are the areas that are being looked after by cross-cultural training. Today we'll be discussing process. So process of cross-cultural training. So basically process is being divided into 5 different, you can say, steps. First is identifying the type of global assignment for which CCT is required. Determine the specific cross-cultural training needs. Establish the goals and measures for determining training effectiveness. Deliver CCT program and evaluate whether the CCT program was effective. So when we talk about identifying the type of global assignment, because the type of global assignment will lead to identifying with which intensity CCT has to be delivered. Now, when we talk about type of global assignments, we have, as we have already discussed, that when you go send an international assignee, you have 4 different motives. First is technical, functional, developmental, and strategic categories on the basis of which you send an international assignee. So on the basis of all these 4, say whether you are sending a person on technical assignment or functional assignment or for development purpose or strategic purpose, so intensity of CCT would different. For example, let us suppose you have sent person on a technical assignment. So when you are sending a person on technical assignment, so that person, there would be very significant interaction with the host nationals who are who are working in the subsidiary location. That means those interaction that inevitably will occur will not greatly affect the outcome of the assignment. That means the person who has been sent on technical assignment, the level of interaction he'll be having will not be as intensified as the person who has been sent on functional assignment. So the level of cross-cultural training would not be in that particular intensity as compared to the person who has been sent on functional assignment. Now, functional assignment is obviously similar to technical assignment, with the difference that there are more interactions with host nationals, because which are necessary in order to make that assignment successful, because interactions with the host country nationals are become very important, crucial part of your functional assignment. So unlike technical assignees, functional assignees will need to interact with host nationals in order for the assignment to be successful. So given their interaction with host nationals, cross-cultural skills are needed in order for functional assignees to be successful. So this type of global assignment is the most common global assignment. Then we have say as a developmental part. So assignee who has been sent to the international location as a part of development or high potential training, so he has to be consistent. It has to be consistent with overall strategic human resource plan. So this type of global assignment, most of the organization they utilize to do it with some context of managerial development program. That means if you are sending a person on developmental program to the other country, so the type of interaction and the type of requirement to know the culture of that particular country would be accordingly handled. Then we have strategic or executive assignees. These type of internationalists, these are meant for high profile, persons in an organizational hierarchy. For example, you are sending vice president to the international assignment. You are sending, say, MD, CEO. So unlike more junior development assignees, executive assignments are viewed as both developmental as well as strategic. So these strategic assignees are the core critical group of the assignees and are considered to be as a competitive resource for an organization. Therefore, the training of CCT is very important, crucial, because they might have a task of entering into a new market, maybe developing countries market base, and being a say manager, you need to, maybe you are going for a joint venture, or to take up a strategic decision. So cross cultural training need has to be put in use according to the type of global assignment an employee has been sent. So you need to identify the type of global assignment. Then you need to determine the specific cross-cultural training needs. Now, when we say we say that you need to identify cross-cultural training need analysis, go back to training. When we discussed training in the normal human resource management, we said that we have a need analysis where we did organization analysis, task analysis, and individual analysis. Here also we are going to do analysis of the training at all these three parameters, or at the three levels. First is organization level, second is obviously individual level, and third is assignment level. When we say organizational level, herein, now this analysis considers how CCT can assist both headquarters and subsidiary in supporting its global strategy. That means when you are devising, when you are analyzing whether CCT has to be given or not, cross-cultural training has to be given or not, you have to keep in mind global strategy and subsidiary strategy. And three type of strategies you will have to keep in mind. First is host strategy, that means the country where you are going. Second, the subsidiary, which is supporting that, and overall global strategy that organization is following. So in addition, organization analysis, it considers the availability of training resources such as trainers, maybe equipment which is required for cross-cultural training, and budgets you need to allocate. So everything will be analyzed at organizational level. So based upon this organizational assessment, HR decisions are made to whether an organization is ready and is willing to go for effective cross-cultural training program or not. Right? So that is at organization analysis. Then second, we said that individual or expatriate analysis. Now at this particular level, what you need to analyze is the expatriate. Now, what you are going to analyze in expatriate? His motivation level, his own culture where he is hailing from, right? Whether he is pursuing, he is perceiving the issues of CCT program, which has been designed to address, to address his settlement in the overseas or not. So, and intercultural communication style, maybe specific problems in communicating. That means at individual or personal level analysis you are going to do for the organization, whether the individual is ready to receive the CCT or not. Then is assignment analysis. We have already discussed assignment, that on the basis of whether you have sent a person on a technical assignment, on the functional assignment, development assignment, or a strategic assignment. So based on the type of assignment, you are going to analyze the type of CCT. Then third is establish CCT goals and measures. Once cross-cultural training needs have been identified, then short-term and long-term goals for training outcomes must be developed. That means what are your expectations from the cross-cultural training? So short-term goals, they will specify what expatriates should be able to accomplish on completion of CCT. That means what is the outcome you are expecting from an expatriate after he is through with cross-cultural training. And long-term goals, in contrast, will reflect the expected outcome of the expatriate assignment. such as cross-cultural adjustment, success of the assignment and all that. That means long-term would be overall assessment of the assignment, right? But short-term would be at the individual level. So cross-cultural training goals, they should be stated in a detailed and measurable terms so that when you convey those goals to your assignee, he is very clear that why that this cross-cultural training is being given to him and how he should receive it. And so as to bridge in the gap in adjusting in the host country, right? So now when we say goals and measures, so measures have to be at 3 levels. First is at cognitive level, that means what is his reception level. Then at effective level, that means whether he is able to modify his perception about the host culture, and is he able to increase his self-confidence so as to communicate with individuals from other cultures. And the last is behavioral goals. That means ABC of the attitude, which we have already discussed, affective, cognition, and behavior. So behavioral goals will help expatriate from adaptive behaviors and by emphasizing cross-cultural skills, which expatriates might require in order to be successful in their international assignment. So all these 3 type of changes, that is cognitive, affective, and behavior, they are relevant in formulating the CCT goals and the type of global assignment which will determine the type of change is required, right? For example, let us suppose people are sent on technical assignment, which does not require significant interaction with the host nationals. So it does not need to focus when you are designing CCT. So it will not focus on cognitive goals. So it will focus more on behavioral goals, right? So you need to establish the goals, then develop and deliver the CCT program. Now here is wherein actually you are delivering the cross-cultural program. So once the training needs have been determined and they have been translated into short-term and long-term goals, so next step is to develop and deliver training program, which will be achieved through training goals. So this involves, first, you should be able to identify the type of training which I have to deliver, right? How, like, what should be the method which I should adopt for training. So when we talk about, developing and delivering CCT program, it is here that we discuss, it is herein where we discuss the type of programs which you are looking forward to, the type of CCT programs. We have different type of CCT programs, which are like this. These are different types and methods of CCT. First is didactic, experiential, attribution on the basis of language, cultural awareness, interaction, cognitive behavior modification, and sequential. So when we talk about the type of training which you have to, as a trainer, you have to identify, first is didactic training. Now this type of training, it involves factual information regarding working and living conditions as well as cultural aspects of the host country. That means the content of the cultural aspect, it will mainly address practical issues such as maybe shopping, how do you shop, what are the dress codes in the host country, and then it represents the traditional way of learning, right? So it would be a didactic training would be delivered in a classroom training. So through classroom, so it is a less structured method, and it generally involves casual conversation with the experts. That means a person who is being sent to the international assignment will be having a casual conversation with the trainer, and it would be more or less a less structured and a classroom type of training. Then second is experiential training. Experiential training is conveyed using a number of methods, right? It is not only practical exercises, workshops, or simulations, but They might include concepts such as look-see visits. Look-see visits is that one preliminary, one of this. You are having a one visit. You are planning one visit of the say international assignment to the assignee or to the for that host country. The host country. So look-see trips, they can provide first real experience of the country to the expatriate. So experiential training is wherein you are experiencing, expat is experiencing himself that what is the culture of the country where he has to settle down, and it gives an opportunity him to meet the people in the new country and get a view of new environment and the workplace. So this is how experiential training goes on. Basically, it aims at preparing expatriate in more direct way, so building beyond the mere intellectual experience. So then we have attribution training. When we talk about attribution training, it is learning to think and act as a host country specific. It tries to give the expatriate skills in thinking and acting as a host nationals. How do you do that? It is basically aimed at giving expatriate an insight into cultural point of view in the of the host country, which enables expatriate to explain and understand host national behavior. Now, this is done by teaching, teaching skills that aim to make expatriate attributes more, isomorphic to the new culture. So attribution training is closely connected, uh, which is cultural assimilator. Cultural assimilator means, for example, uh, you might show a picture, you might show a documentary, you might show something which through which he is actually thinking, and role plays. It could be role plays as well. So, or it could be interaction with the direct interaction with the other person who is hailing from that host country. So it encounters between members of two different cultures so as to practice interaction with a new culture. That means you are you are having an expat and you are having the other person, so he is helping him to practice that. So that is what is attribution training. Then we have already discussed language training and cross cultural awareness training. We discussed that we have different type of language training. We have corporate language, we have local language, and we need to train a person or an assignee on the basis of, say, language, so which will involve expatriates native language or the business language of the host country. So obviously fluency will take months, or sometimes it takes even years together to attain. But this method is often used in CCT and is effective way of preparing an expatriate, since lack of language skills can slow down an adjustment process. So knowledge of the local language is important to send visible signals of politeness and to be better understand the culture of the host country. Like, for example, I'll just share one example of the gesture. For example, in India, we are we when we point and wave our hand to someone, it is okay in South Asian countries, but in Gulf countries it is not okay. It is this body language is this sign is used for waving at animals. Then we have cultural awareness training. So similarly, we have discussed cultural awareness training, that you have to stop a person from getting a cultural shock. So what it you need to give expatriate an insight about the concept of culture, cultural differences, and how it is to be done. It will be done by teaching awareness about home culture, training activities which include self-awareness, building and value ranking. Um, so then self-assessments. self-awareness, which will translate into acceptance of oneself and the ability to adapt the host culture. Because if you are not aware, you have to, it is not that you just have to analyze country culture, but you have to analyze your acceptance level, your perception, your receptiveness. So you will have to have your self dimension. We discussed 3 dimensions: at relationship based, at self dimension based. So herein you need to have a look into yourself as well, that whether you are ready to accept the other country's culture, and how much you are, what is your acceptance level in form of ability to get adapted to the host culture. So that is what will be focus of cultural awareness training. Then interaction training is based basically on interaction between new expatriates and expatriates with more experience of the local culture. So what it helps in? It helps in getting an idea that where you will be stuck, what could be the challenges you might face, because you are interacting. This is different from language training. This is interaction training. You are being you are being exposed to a person who has already been on international assignment. He's already settled over there, and now you are sent for an interaction to that person. So he will tell you, actually, because he has already faced that phase which a person is about to face. So this interaction will help him to know about the challenges, the gaps. Yes. Now we have so interaction training. This is the method of interaction which is based on interaction between new expatriates and expatriates with more experience of the local culture. Generally, it can take place before departure with previous expatriates or at the arrival in the host country, depending on the availability of the other person, or depending upon the organization policy. It could be pre-departure, it can be as a pre-departure training, or it could be on arrival training as well. So cognitive behavior modification. Now, this method is less used training methods when we talk about training an expatriate. So expatriates, they find rewarding or punishing in the home culture context. That means when I am training you through either through rewards or through punishments. That means I'm making distinctions, that if you apply these processes, you are going to get adjusted in a nominal way. If you are if you are not adhering to all these things, you might face all these consequences. That means a type of punishment, or I am trying to develop a threat in your mind, so as to have that adaptability to the host culture. So that is what is cognitive behavior modification. Then sequential training. Sequential training, now you need to uh, have a sequence of training, that when I should have this training. Is it pre-departure training, on the arrival training, or the post-arrival phase? But most of the cases, in 90% of the cases, the sequence is pre-departure training. That all these trainings are given before person actually leaves for international assignment. So it is a pre-departure training which helps the expatriates to form realistic expectations prior to arrival. Although some companies, they follow post arrival also, or on arrival training as well, but researchers say that the effectiveness of pre departure training is more as compared to say on arrival or post arrival phase of the training. So these were the different type of trainings or methods which trainer might think of, depending on the type of global assignment which he is being sent, or the requirements of the cross-cultural needs. So he is designing this program accordingly. And then finally, it is evaluate whether the CCT program was effective or not. So then you need to find out whether this whether it is successful or not. So it will happen after you have delivered the CCT. So it should be evaluated against the stated goals. You have already had goals for formulating CCT. So now you are going to measure the goals that were set for CCT and the actual when it has been delivered. So results from CCT. So it will help organization to decide whether the type of CCT which a company is doing, or it is CCT is being given to the employees, whether it should be continued in its current form or it needs any modification. So cross-cultural training, it refers to the systematic process of gathering information which is necessary to determine the effectiveness of CCT. So it will be how you are going to evaluate it, the benefits. So you are going to ask directly from the expatriates whether CCT has benefited them or not. Has it helped them in their performance or not? So on the basis of this evaluation, you are going to conclude your CCT, whether it was actually up to the mark or not. Then additionally, you can also have field experience. That means by look-see visits, in-house training program wherein you can use simulators, then outside agencies wherein you hire or outsource your training programs, and there is consultant or trainer from outside who's training you on that particular aspect. Then on the job training assignments, it will include coaching from superiors, understudy. I'm not going to discuss this, we have already discussed it in HR. Then understudy helps in multiple management skills, development of global mindset. Understudy, when you are assigned, when you are posted under someone, so you tend to have a look into multiple management skills, that how you need to operate in the host country and what type of skills are required, because now it is not only the one type of skill in which you are having expertise and you are working there, but no, you have to have your skills at different levels, maybe at cultural levels, at language levels, at organization levels, and at your own self level as well. And the development of global mindset, this will help you in developing a global mindset now, because you have come out of your native place, you are experiencing a whole lot new world, and you are seeing the whole new, not only your organization, but in the host country, the competitors as well, how they are implementing over there, how they are operating over there. So it will help you in developing a global mindset, which definitely is going to help you in your career growth as well as organizational growth. Now we have international performance management. When we talk about international performance management, we have already, we already know what performance management is, where it is a process basically wherein you tend to manage the performance of an individual, either at domestic level or at international level. Domestic level, we have already discussed it in HR, that how there are various methods, there are various techniques through which you can evaluate and you can manage performance of an individual. But it is different when we talk about international performance management, because there the measurement itself is different. So how it is different, we'll be discussing it in form of challenges. So first challenge, that there are some challenges that makes international performance management a bit complicated. First is total company versus part of it. Now, what is this total company versus part of it? MNC consists of, we know, headquarters, subsidiaries, and various alliance companies, right? So HR manager needs to use different type of appraisal techniques for each part, right? If he is handling say employees at headquarters, if he's handling employees at subsidiaries, and if he's handling it and alliance companies. So technique for appraisal will differ. Even the implementation process of the decision results will have contrasting outcomes. So the best practice from the point of view of subsidiary may not be the best for headquarter. So decisions that benefit most of the parts and on long rather than short-term basis are to be preferred and considered appropriate. So here the challenge is to measure the performance of employee who is working in headquarter and subsidiaries. Because when the headquarter and subsidiaries follow different strategies and implement varied actions, so these aspects in decision making and implementation may result in different measuring performance of employees. So the difficulty of this performance appraisal is the time span of impact of decision or action. Employee makes decision in a particular year, but the impact may be in the other years. You have decided to measure a particular employee's performance this year, but effect will be seen in coming years because rest of the employees are observing it. So total company versus part of it, that means HR manager who is handling performance management at international level, he has to decide whether we need to take total company's performance, whether we need to implement it throughout or we need to have a part of it, which should be adopted or which should be, evaluated for the employees who are working, maybe headquarters, subsidiaries, or alliance. Then second is standard format versus customized format. See, normally parameters like profits, return on investment, cash flows, productivity, sales, then we have punctuality, customer complaints, etc. They are applied to employees for measuring their performance. And some might apply qualitative parameters like innovation, leadership, motivation. So depending upon the level or the type of job you are handling, so type of parameter will differ. So question arises that should the headquarter and subsidiaries adapt the same standard criteria, performance factors, or different criteria? Because different criteria are appropriate for their individual environments. Because when we discuss the standard format versus customized format, you will have to correlate it with the cultural dimensions. What are the employees' expectations? What he is expecting out of his performance will directly depend on the culture which he is hailing from. Right, whether he's hailing from a risk taking risk taking or not risk taking, then monochronic or polychronic culture, so that will affect your parameters. So different criteria are appropriate for their individual environments. So for example, for a PCN who's working within a subsidiary, you need to decide whether we should apply headquarter or host country criteria for evaluating the performance. For example, you are sending a person who was working in India. Now you are sending that person to US. Now it becomes a challenge whether you have to evaluate his performance according to the Indian standards or Indian parameters that were set in Indian, organization, or you have to set the parameters where actually he is working, that means subsidiary or host country. So organizational performance in terms of various parameters, may be sales, profits, they are because they are influenced by regulations of the host government. Government has got, let us suppose, a person who was easily able to sell off particular units in India may not be able to sell those units in US because of certain government regulations over there or because of certain policies over there. So will it be fair to evaluate his performance on the same parameter? That becomes a challenge. So therefore you need to identify whether you need to follow a standard format or you need to have a customized format according to the country where you have sent your expat. Then uniformity of data of performance. What does uniformity of data of performance mean? It means that their subsidiaries not only work in different environment, but also carry out different kind of business, including maybe manufacturing, trading, dealing in services. Therefore, providing uniform data for appraisal won't be feasible. For a particular for a particular kind of business, let us suppose manufacturing. Manufacturing, the type of data which is required for performance management may not be feasible for a organization which is dealing in services or which is dealing in construction. So let us suppose here in parent parent company, you were working with manufacturing, but when I have sent you for international assignment, it is now dealing in services. Company is same, but that there it is dealing in services. Here it was dealing in manufacturing. So data which is required for performance management would be different. Now again, it becomes a challenge that how to make uniformity of data in the performance. So there could be differences in accounting standards. Accounting standards differ due to cultural factors because they decide the degree of conservatism with which accounts are prepared. For example, Germans are very conservative, while Americans are very optimistic. So accounting system is also oriented towards the information requirements of capital providers. Now, who are capital providers? Your investors, your bankers, then how good you are in maintaining political ties. So it will differ from parent company to host country. Then similarly, inflations, they all will influence your performance. Right? So you need to decide upon how to have the data, uniformity of data. It is a very big challenge for human resource manager. Then we have environmental variations. Environmental variations, obviously, for example, we talk of dollars, we talk of rupees, we talk of euros, we talk of associations, economic associations. So all those environmental variations, may it be global culture, globalization, it will vary from country to country. Then the type of IT, development, the type of overall strategy of that particular country, that will affect your performance. So it has to be taken into account when you go for developing a performance management system. Then next is validity of performance criteria. When we talk about validity of performance criteria, MNCs use different performance criteria based on contribution to the company and maybe some based on employee traits. So when we talk about contribution, it could be profits on the basis of profit, ROI, productivity, and if we talk about based on employee traits, it could be his own skills, analytical skills, judgmental skills, and all that. So each of these criteria may not be valid for local settings of a subsidiary. Cultural and social environment, economic system and institutional setup, political ideologies and structure that influences the business as well as performance of the managers vary from parent company to the host country. Let us suppose you have been sent on a technical assignment. Now you have been sent from India to, let us suppose, Ghana. Now, quite possible that when I have to evaluate your performance as compared to the employee who is working in Ghana, he may not have that technical, exposure, because he hails from Ghana, where technology is not that updated, or it is not developed. So can I take that performance criteria for evaluating your performance? I have. It is a big question mark. So I need to validate my performance criteria. So performance criteria has to be, valid in a parent company. For example, which is valid in parent company may not be valid in the host country, or vice versa. So you need to identify performance criteria. Then time and distance variations, very important. Performance of business activities in MNC, it is complicated by distance and time, because we have different time zones between parent company and subsidiary companies. Measurement of performance of employees working in MNC is challenging as compared to those who are working in domestic company, as the employees working in domestic companies can meet the colleagues face to face, while the employees of MNC have a limited choice to do so. The IT, you can have IT devices, like you can take the help of say technology, like video conferencing, mails, fax, phones. For example, now you are handling, for let us suppose you are handling clients of US. The other person is local, and he is hailing from US, and he is dealing with US clients. So he's not having the problem of time and distance. But you sitting in say US, and you are handling these clients of India, or maybe some other country where there is time and distance variation, that will affect your performance. Because having said that, technology has become an aid, but it cannot replicate, or it cannot replace the face to face conversations. So it might have that effect on your performance. Then varied levels of maturity. People of different countries are generally strong in different skills. Varied level of maturity, it will, let us suppose you are hailing from a country who has, power distance, which is strong on masculinity or femininity. So it will have a different set of maturity levels of those people who are hailing from such countries. So, for example, Indians are strong in mathematics and logic, while Americans are very strong in systematic analysis. So, MNC should not therefore adopt the same performance appraisal format and scale to measure the performance of Indians and US of the same for the same job, because we have varied levels of maturity. Then, raters' competence. Raters' competence, now it depends on the rater who is appraising you, whether he is competent enough. Let us suppose I am working in India and I am supposed to evaluate performance who is sitting in US. Am I competent enough to rate his or her performance? Am I experienced enough? So generally, rater executives are either in headquarters or in subsidiary. So it is quite likely that these raters, they do not have experience of working in other countries, and they do not know what problems person might be facing over there on social front, business and work challenge that foreign employees face. So it becomes doubtful if that in this condition, if such rater possesses required competence to appraise the performance of expatriates. So rater competence, again, one needs to analyze that who is going to rate your performance. Then rater bias. Rater bias, we have already discussed. It is same halo effect, central tendency, leniency, recency effect, and personal prejudice. This I'm not going to discuss in detail, because we all know what halo effect and horn effect and central tendency is. So they are the common errors that might creep in while you are evaluating performance of an employee. Then we have host environment. Host environment, See, internal environment like structure of the host company, organization, ownership, expatriates performance. Then the ownership of the parent company against a joint venture. It allows PCN to work more successfully in the host country. That means what is the culture, what is the environment which is prevailing in the organization of the host country, that is going to affect your performance. So external environment like social, cultural, political, economic, all pestle, they will affect your employees' performance. And in addition, maybe availability of school, other educational facilities, medical and hospital facilities, recreational facilities, they will affect all on your employees' performance. So it is going to have a huge impact on employees' performance. Then last is your cultural adjustment. Obviously, it is one of the very important and crucial factors which one needs to consider, because adjustment of employee to the organization culture and country's culture, then adjustment of employees family members to the country's culture, that will influence employees' performance. For example, you were you were a star performer in India, but the moment you were sent for an international assignment, you 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 were not able to perform because you were missing your home country, right? So this fact, it should be considered in evaluation of performance. So analysis of challenges of performance appraisal or expatriates, it reveals that it is very critical to measure expatriate performance, whether you are working in a host country or a parent country, because they will encounter two different situations. So these were some of the, you can say, challenges for international performance management. Then we have quickly factors that might affect performance of an expatriate. Obviously, these are the factors that might affect performance of an expatriate. First is compensation package. It is essential that organization recognizes the importance of remuneration and reward and performance equation. So perceived financial benefits along with progression potential with the overseas assignment are often important motives for accepting the posting. Because if an employee feels that he's not getting the expected reward or the expected growth in the salary or hike in the salary when he is being sent for an international assignment, so he might not feel motivated in accepting the international assignment. So these expectations, if they are not realized during the assignment, level of motivation and commitment is likely to decrease. So obviously it will affect your performance. The next is the task or the assignment task variables or the role of expatriates. This we have already discussed, that on the basis of different type of tasks, as we said, that we have technical, you can be sent for technical assignment, you can be sent for development assignment or strategic assignment or functional assignment. So accurately assessing performance in these tasks, for example, if you have been sent on technical assignment, but I'm using different parameters for assessing or evaluating your, say, performance, that will not give me the correct picture of employees' performance. So for the expatriate, the parent company, it should predetermine his or her role in the foreign assignment, and role expectations may be clearly communicated to the expatriate before departure, so that he does not find any difficulty in perceiving what he is supposed to do over there and how his performance should be evaluated, what is expected out of his performance. Then third is headquarters support. Individual's primary motivation for accepting the assignment may be career or financially oriented. But this is often mixed with a genuine feeling of loyalty and commitment to the sending organization. That means how much support you are getting from headquarters. So process of adjustment to the foreign location, it typically produces the varying degrees, range of maybe emotional, psychological reactions. So headquarters support, if employee is supported by the headquarter, his performance is, he is definitely getting a confidence in his performance. Then we have host environment. This we have already discussed, that all the type of environment which is prevailing in the host country and which is there in the country. So it will affect your performance of an expatriate. And lastly, we have cultural adjustment, that how employee is adjusting to the culture. If he is okay with it, obviously his performance is going to be good. If he is not able to adjust with the culture, even his family is not able to adjust to the culture, so his family might nag him that we are not feeling comfortable, we are not feeling good in this particular country, so it will definitely affect his performance. So all these factors, they might affect the performance of an expatriate. So this was all about today's lecture. Thank you.